Welcome, everybody. I'm going to call the Town of Dudley Government Study Committee Monday, December 8th, 2025 meeting to order, and a note that this meeting is being recorded. First item is Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Second item on the agenda, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the 10/27/25 minutes?
Motion for approval of minutes of 10/25/25?
Okay. 10/27.
27, I'm sorry.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion to approve the 11/10/25 minutes.
I don't remember the words. What's the
Motion to,
So moved.
So
so
moved.
Simple as that. Okay, second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And do I have a motion to approve the 11/24/25 minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Oh, we've put this off. Well, now in public business, item A is our appointment of a clerk, and we've kind of put this off a couple times. I don't know if we should wait till we have a fuller board, or do we want to do something tonight?
I have no problem waiting until we have a full board.
I think that's fine.
If anybody else has different thinking.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, for tonight's meeting, it's not going to impact
It's not gonna-
our proceedings, so.
Okay, we'll table item A for future meeting. Item B is one that we've put off a couple of times too as well. It's the discussion of vacancies. I mean, tonight we just made the quorum with 2 absences. We're coming up on a time where meeting frequency is going to become more important. We're going to be under the gun a little bit. So I guess the debate would be, is this the right time to bring in new membership, get them up to speed, and simply to have perhaps just a quorum? I don't know what everybody's opinion is. Some discussion on that?
Well, if I may, I think just in your statement right there, is this the right time? We're going to be getting feedback back, from the public in the next little bit, so I think this is the ideal time. We've done preliminary work, but the next step is to do something a little more formal and a little more people intensive. So I think this, if we want to pursue it now, is absolutely the right time, rather than waiting.
Any other opinion?
I don't think bringing them up to speed would be too much if they just watch the YouTube videos.
Sure.
I think we wouldn't have to spend too much time getting them in.
Paul, any comment?
I think we're good where we are.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
What will we have to do, Olivia, to solicit new membership? Put out another...
The board would take a motion or take a vote on whether or not to post for vacancies, and then I would relay the information to Debbie LaPlaca, and she would make sure it gets out on social media, the website, and the digital signboards. Whether or not people apply is up to the residents, but that's how we post vacancies.
Right. I guess the final question is, again, with the appointment of a clerk, should we wait to have at least Brian back to get his opinion before we make a decision, or should we make a decision this evening? We'd be waiting 2 more weeks.
I think that's a good way to go.
Okay.
Yeah, he always has like the devil's advocate kind
Yeah.
of thing. I like it.
That's good. I agree. All
I
right,
think
so
that's a good way to go.
are we okay with tabling item B?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. C, review of the DPW discussion. So I think towards the end of the meeting, our last meeting, I thought that we had a very good discussion, and I learned a lot. I know that. I think we had some good comments and a good representation from all the people who would be affected. I noticed that there was a recap of the meeting, of our meeting at the Water and Sewer Department, and I think they appreciated that we were, open-minded and listened to everyone's point of view. Any comments from anybody else?
I think it was constructive.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's completed. I think there really should be additional study, whether it be from our committee or something that would be a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen through the Administrator's Office. I don't know. But I think there's purpose to it. Speaking with the representatives 2 weeks ago, everyone has this singular idea of what a public works department ought to be. But there's many other methodologies where you can maybe redact a water department and have them as a standalone, but still continue with a effort to consolidate all others under, a singular management. So I think it's something that really could, have better study than just one meeting to really introduce ourselves to everyone else.
It's a complicated topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was, having the discussion elicited some ideas and concepts, and one of them Paul just kind of referred to, which was, the water department being regionalized and incorporated with other, communities, and the potential standalone DPW of sewer/highway. That's interesting thinking that isn't mired in 20th century or today. That's a little forward thinking to tomorrow.
Mhm.
So, I think having that conversation, having those ideas out on the table is great.
I mean, Mr. Chair, I would just like to speak on this also, is that it's not, everything is in despair, with these departments. As we spoke
Absolutely.
about that report dated 2018, there's a lot of work that had already taken place from those recommendations. The water department has done great work from these recommendations, and also mandates from DEP and Commonwealth of Mass. Highway, sewer, everyone has really moved forward. It just hasn't come to total fruition as a singular entity. So it's not like they've ignored the report and have done nothing to move themselves forward.
No, I think
That's
that's crystal
not the
clear.
case, but I just think that there's still betterment to be had.
I think some of the comments were that most of the recommendations in that report had perhaps even been done without even knowing the report existed. So
Yeah.
that's fabulous. It's just, is there a more efficient way for the system to run itself?
Well,
That's the question.
I guess the question, Mr. Chair, is do you want to continue with this research with this board, or do you want to recommend, furtherance through the Board of Selectmen? And I don't know how you want to move forward with this, because I think that would be a big aspect of our remaining time, which I don't have issue with.
Olivia, do you have? Okay, here's an open-ended question, I think. Is reporting back to the Board of Selectmen that we think it merits further review the recommendation that we can provide? Or do you think that they might want something more concrete than that? Or should we at least discuss with them?
You could certainly discuss it with them if you're still planning on coming into a upcoming selectmen's meeting to update them on the progress that's been made,
Mhm.
and then let the board direct you if they want you to dive further into a more detailed recommendation.
I like that option. I think that's what we should do.
Yeah,
That's what I would have been leaning towards anyway.
I like that thinking. Are we scheduled to meet with the board?
I think we had discussed a date at a previous meeting. I think it's either this coming one on December 15th or possibly the first selectmen's meeting in January. I think it depended on the schedule of the board here.
I think one of the fascinating pieces to come out from that whole discussion was the fact that they're informally doing all of these things,
Yeah.
cooperating and all of that. And I think the question is it best practice to then document that, or to rely on the good faith of the people that inhabit those positions? you know, and that's a critical question, I think.
Right.
Well, that would be my recommendation, and we can bring this forward to the Board of Selectmen, see what their wishes are, and then we'll go with that direction.
Perfect. Okay. Anna, anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think if you were gonna combine, I kinda liked it, they're all the same, maybe all together, so they can use the same systems and
Mhm.
benefit off of that, but
Right,
at the end, I don't think I have enough information.
right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So, item D, review of member research. I'm up this evening, and my topic for tonight is whether to elect or appoint town officials. So we're gonna wait for the, bring that up. Shall I give you the nod? Okay. So, per Mass General Law, any office or board, except the Board of Selectmen or the school committee, can be appointed. Later on in the presentation, there's a grid with a lot of local towns on it, and there is appointments and elections are all over the map, based on the situation in each individual town. It would need to be, if we do make any changes, they would need to be approved at a town meeting and then voted upon at an annual election. So what that means is that when you take the school committee and the Board of Selectmen out of the mix, town clerk can be appointed, treasurer and tax collector, assessors, assistant assessors, auditors, highway surveyors. These are all terms straight from Mass General Law. We may not have all of them, but technically all of these people could be appointed rather than elected, as long as a majority of the voters vote so. Next slide. Okay, so what's the difference, right? Why are some elected and why might some be appointed? Obviously, elected officials, they're voted in an election, so you've got to be able to be elected and then actually be voted in. There's a real distinction here I see between elected and appointed, and it's where elected people should be representative of the community because they would set the policies that guide the community. So, for example, a selectman might be elected because they prefer their community to be more industrial or agricultural or rural, and people might agree or disagree with that. School board helps, shape the way education is designed and where we spend money in school systems. So it's important for that to be reflected by the community. Obviously, if we were larger, mayor or city council, select board members, town moderators, those are the types of positions that are good to be elected. Appointed, they're hired. So there would be a job description, and they're hired based on qualifications. They implement the policies. They manage departments, day-to-day administration. They have the expertise that's very important for those types of functions. So, town or city managers, town clerks can be appointed. Treasurer collector. We're going to get into a lot of the qualifications and desirable qualities of that type of a position. But also department heads like police chiefs and director of public works. Those are good to be appointed. Next slide. So again, elected officials are directly accountable to the voters. Appointed officials are accountable to those who hired them. And where it really starts to split between appointed or elected is expertise. And appointments can bring specialized skills, financial management, like financial management to complex roles. And we're going to see some information later where municipalities are really moving towards that appointing where there is a lot of specialized skills, expertise, or professional standards. And who appoints them can be different from town to town. Sometimes it can be elected officials who are actually doing the hiring, or it can be relegated to town administrator in our case, or other appointed individuals in the town. Next slide. This is information from the Collins Center. It's a questionnaire that they posted on their website that has been used by many towns as a framework for considering and electing appointed offices. And there's two pages to this slide. There's 8 points. And on the left is criteria that support the position being an elected position, and on the right, appointed. And basically it boils down to what I've kind of already been talking about. Elected, you'd have a significant policy-making responsibility. Even outside of the day-to-day operations of town government. And item 3 was interesting to me. You don't need little training or expertise. It's kind of, I don't want to demean any Board of Selectmen members, but you don't need to know about financing or how to pave roads or how to do these things. You're guiding the people who do those things. That's what number 3 really, in my opinion, is stressing, that you're at a slightly higher level than the other ones because you're setting the policy, not actually doing it. Number 4 was interesting. Roles and tasks are easily and widely understood. I think it's fairly reasonable to think that townspeople can understand what it means to be a selectman, being up in front of everybody, trying to help make decisions, trying to get consensus or pull together people who know what they're talking about to try to come to an answer, as opposed to being really in the weeds. And then on the other side, for the first 4 items, we're really looking at people who are appointed. They would have, number 3 especially, someone with little training or expertise in its area of work would have significant difficulty in performing the work effectively. We're going to get into some responsibilities of some positions, and there would be relatively few people who probably know how to do some of these things. And I don't know how many people understand about higher level financing or accounting issues, things like that. Sometimes even for me in my professional role, it's difficult to explain to people why things have to be the way they are, because of accounting rules, because of auditing rules, because of presentation of information. And sometimes you want things done a certain way, and sometimes it's not that easy to convey or for that person to accept. So that can be a problem. Next slide is some more questions, and they're basically in the same vein. Elect higher level, more public-centered, as opposed to the appointed being more in the weeds, doing the day-to-day work, having the knowledge and expertise to do that work efficiently, accurately, and quickly. Next slide is a little bit of the rationale. In fact, the rationale as municipal positions tend to move from elected to appointed manner of filling the position, it's really the growing responsibility and skill set. As I see it, the jobs are much more visual in nature. The mistakes made at that level are very visible and can be sometimes detrimental to the communities. Having people who are professionally qualified to do those jobs sets a clear expectation of the position and also its relationship in town government. The elected positions have a certain level of autonomy. While they're totally connected, they also have a certain level of autonomy when it comes to the relationship between other groups. And the world is it's continually getting more and more complex. And the issues and the manner of solving those issues is equally becoming complex. financing and accounting issues are greater. If you think of communication, 30 years ago, there was no Facebook, there was no social media, there weren't even cell phones, 30, maybe 35 years ago, cell phones weren't even readily available. Communication was different. Videos weren't meetings weren't videotaped, minutes were kept, but public has greater access to information now, so all these jobs have become way more visible, is my point. Next slide is, there's an angle to this that's well researched about mitigating risk. Any position, I think our town is very lucky. I think whether elected or appointed, we do have very qualified professionals in those roles. That being said, there is a certain risk involved with elected positions. Every so many years, you basically have to reapply for your job when you're elected. And there is no guarantee that a qualified professional person will be re-elected or elected into that role. Anyone who lacks the relevant knowledge or skills could make poor decisions. It could be financially or legally detrimental to the town, and could cause a great deal of problems. One other aspect to this is that in the Commonwealth, approximately 1/3 of elected positions are filled in uncontested races. So if you've got a good person in that role and it is an elected position, well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You've got a person who knows what they're doing, is familiar with the town, familiar with the practices professionally and locally, and they can keep doing that. But that fact kind of scares me a little bit, because if the person didn't run, well, what would happen? Could we fill that role with someone who is competent? Voter turnout is another problem. I think the Dudley average is approximately in the 30% range. Probably I'm being a little general there. Certainly it's much higher when there's a national or state office being considered, and get as high as 70%. But if we have about 12,000 residents and 30% of them show up, it's only about 4,000, and you could probably presume that candidates for positions are coming out of that pool. And so you can see the numbers of the number of people who are eligible keep shrinking, right? And that's because of residency requirements, which is the next bullet. The pool of qualified candidates can be diminished by residency requirements. It's been documented in studies that is the case, where that could happen. Appointed positions in local government can help mitigate the risk, basically by hiring people. You're basically searching out the person who fills the job requirements. Doesn't matter where they live. They could live 2 towns away or 5 towns away. You would be mitigating the risk of having someone who is unqualified for the position being responsible for it, as opposed to having someone who would know what they're doing and can demonstrate that. There seems to be a robust movement of assistance in these roles, and whether the actual position of, let's say, treasurer collector, a town clerk, or other higher level positions, even if they are elected, they usually have hired assistants under them, and that's a good way for them to move up. So towns that have appointed positions are getting those people to fill the roles, because the chances of having the actual person and the assistant in the same town and being able to run, are obviously a little slimmer. So that's the risk factor. We have a couple more slides about rationale. So the rationale for appointing: you have a larger talent pool, can be reduced politicization. They can be politically neutral in that case. I would argue, what about some of these positions being apolitical is actually a good thing, providing unbiased and answers that just present facts. Can provide continuity and stability as well. People can come and go, but generally, if it's a good place to work and people know what they're doing and they're doing a good job, they'll stay, maybe for several election cycles, and that builds continuity and stability within the team here at the town hall. And they can improve efficiencies, implement strategies and deliver cost-effective service as well. The learning curve for someone coming in not knowing what to do in some of these elected cases could be detrimental. But there's also rationale for electing. Obviously, there's the democratic accountability. The people actually choose who fills the position. They can be truly representative of the community because they're coming from the community. That's a direct link right there. They potentially could be more responsive to public needs. They live in the community, they're part of the community. So that makes their role in the town government possibly a little greater. Political leadership, that they're a visible political spokesperson, and they would have a high degree of visibility. And it can also prevent cronyism. I mean, there's oftentimes where, depending on the hiring practice, certainly certain things can happen, and when elections happen, that might be less likely to happen. As we move into the next slide, we've certainly had a little bit of resistance towards this in the past in this town. And I think most of the studies show that residents of a town would see elections as a safeguard against a concentration of power. Even if electing is creating some sort of a risk, as in terms of someone being elected to a position and not having any clue how to do it. They see it as loss of voter control. It takes away their ability to elect these positions, and so they feel like their power is being diminished. Tradition comes into it as well. This actually, at the last town meeting where it was proposed that we change the Board of Selectmen to a select board, one of the arguments presented was, well, it's just tradition, and why are we, stomping on the years and years of tradition? Well, maybe because it's not correct, I don't know. Perception of elitism. Appointed positions are often filled by professionals or insiders. I've used some of these terms because it is what's been presented. I don't know about the insider terminology. But I think that bullet is meant to lean towards perhaps, more professional people talking over the townspeople and maybe presenting things in ways that aren't necessarily understandable. But there are certainly ways around that. Transparency. Elections are very public and visible, and I think people might be worried about how hiring happens behind the scenes. And then there's also the fear of consolidation of power. Shifting the hiring authority for these positions to one or two people might worry some townspeople about too much centralization of power. Certainly all, viable concerns which can be mitigated. So how can we counteract that? Certainly public education. I think we have another bullet which we've seen our presentations on communication, and getting the word out and holding more forums and explaining things would be beneficial. clear example of consequences. You know, what happens if one of these elected positions is filled by someone who might not be qualified? What would happen then? Pilot programs or phased transitions, you know, recommending that the whole town government be appointed would not be a probably wise thing to do. Working this as a plan, let's say. And having citizen involvement, creating advisory committees. That's certainly a way to get the community involved. It should be said, I mean, we're an appointed board, and I think we've assembled, you know, an interesting group of people with different points of view, different experiences, and that's a great way to build consensus. We're a diverse group, and we're building consensus, and, you know, hopefully that type of practice could be put in the hiring process as well. Certainly, you know, going to town meeting and voting with, or if a charter is involved, making charter changes, that's a great way to memorialize the process as well, or document the process, or make it legal. And then also highlighting some state recommendations. Oftentimes, especially where finances are involved, the state actually recommends that positions be appointed versus elected. Next slide is a quick grid from towns, you know, around our area, and different positions, and whether they're elected, appointed, or not applicable. In Southbridge and Sturbridge, I had this written down. I believe they fall under like a DPW situation, so there's not really a specific board that handles that. But you can see it's really, except for treasurer collector, they're kind of a little bit all over the place, with the treasurer collector position in all those towns being appointed. But even the town clerk is appointed in Charlton and in Oxford. I picked Board of Health because it strikes me as a board that has a certain amount of regulation, and having people who understand that regulation. And I should preface this to say that this is not to say that anyone who fills any of these roles that I'm talking about is unqualified or doesn't know what they're doing. Quite the opposite. But one of the underlying themes of my research is that even if you're okay now, you might not be. And and the only reason is because of the elected versus appointed nature of the role. Planning board is elected in all the towns except for Webster. I can kind of sympathize with that in the vein of Board of Selectmen and school committee. Planning board helps shape the nature of the town, so presenting an opinion to that and having voters agree with it is a great way to validate, you know, what's happening on the planning board. So anyway, that's the surrounding towns. And we were specifically tasked from the selectmen to consider the treasurer-collector role. So what are some of the core responsibilities of a treasurer and collector? Cash management, overseeing investments, reconciling accounts, managing funds, revenue collection, collecting property taxes and excise taxes and other revenues, managing debt service, managing borrowing, bond issuance, repayment schedules, very important. They often administer payroll systems and employee benefits. And they work on financial reporting with town administrators or managers to ensure fiscal stability. All very important responsibilities. And core qualifications, if we were developing a job description, would be obviously in education or equivalent experience. Certifications are also very important. They are certified in the Commonwealth under the Massachusetts Municipal Treasurer Collector certifications. Prior work experience, obviously, in the world of municipal finance, accounting, and treasury. And good knowledge of cash management, debt issuance, payroll systems, and tax collection. And then there's the legal and compliance requirements, being bondable, passing query checks, but also understanding and knowing about Mass General laws. All things that could not happen if someone is elected. Again, there is that risk. Final slide is just a comparison from roughly 11 years ago and 2 years ago. Basically, the lighter blue, or the absence of a dark color, means towns that have appointed the treasurer or collector role, as opposed to those who still elect it. And on the left, you can see a lot more blue. In 10 or 11 years ago, there were still, quite a few communities that still considered it an elected role. But in 2023, the map is obviously a lot different. More and more communities are moving towards appointing this position, for the reasons I've stated, that it's a technically and professionally demanding role, and the risks of not filling it with those qualities it could be a great detriment to the town. That's all I have. Have I stunned you all into silence?
I think each has their own specific attributes and detriments. The only thing that I can say is, it shouldn't be the only thing, but I will agree that taking that ability away to vote for a particular elected office from the citizens, I think would be a move looked at in an adverse, point of view from the people. The less that they're able to elect, the less that they perceive is coming out of their hands for control. However, conversely, and I believe it was a contiguous town to ours a number of years ago, there was an elected position, and someone did get elected into that position that really was not qualified for that position. So you may run into that. But I agree that your statement where was 70% of the time people run unopposed once they're in.
1/3. I think it's 1/3.
1/3. Okay, I'm
of all
sorry.
elections.
Whatever it was, but so if you do have that right person, then hopefully that continues. But it still falls on that one day.
Mhm.
I really like the advisory position to help with the hiring, so that the people could still feel like they have a choice. I thought that was really interesting. I never thought of it like that. So even if it isn't appointed, you still have citizens able to be there and choose who gets that job too.
Help vet the process.
So that they still have a voice, it's just a little bit different.
That is good thinking.
I think similar to how we were talking earlier about the DPW situation not being, the cookie cutter kind of presentation of you need this rigid structure of highway DPW commissioner and these people, that maybe there's a different type of a model or a less rigid model or a less hierarchical model. I think there are ways to present the elected versus appointed argument and soften the blow, let's say, of that argument of, well, I the citizen, want control over this process. There are ways to, and the fear of one person in the town hall hiring everybody, let's say. There's certainly ways around that. There's I think, a knee-jerk reaction to say, well, this is the way it's always been done, and if we don't do it that way, then it's going to be bad. Well, not necessarily.
I really did say, I do think that anyone who's handling money should probably be qualified too.
Well, that's the, I think, interesting point that the town of Dudley is at. Having worked with the current treasurer having worked with his predecessor. I know that they're qualified professionals, and the town has been fortunate, and I'm gonna say, for the last 40 years, but it actually may be longer, that they've had very qualified people running for these elected positions. However, I also work with the DOR, and understand from their perspective and some of the horror stories that they've relayed about circumstances that have developed, in towns, in communities. So it goes back to the comment I made before about the DPW. It may be working perfectly fine right now as an undocumented thing. So, do you want to upset the apple cart by introducing a formality or not? Same thing here. We have been fortunate. We are in a, we've been lucky with the people that have run for elected positions. But as Paul referred to one of our neighbors, somebody that ran for an elected position perhaps didn't have what you would think as the standard qualifications, for that particular position.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I got here a few minutes behind schedule. Very thorough, and I appreciate that, regardless of what side seems attractive now. Really wanted to, again, bring the point forward that the microscope's going on me, and I take issue with that. I appreciate that everybody's here to go through and to look at the government as a whole. If I could, I'll pat myself on the back saying I left the job with an international company that had a pension market cap well over $1 billion. I was with Unilever. I had a master's degree, took a drug test, and I went through all of the screenings to be here, to be appointed for the unexpired term, only to face the next election. And again, I understand, and it's a coin flip. And 1/3, I think that's probably a modest number. I think it's much higher than that on a gamble. But I can also stand here and I can list out what happened in 21, what happened in 24, and I can add things to my resume because I'm the person I am in the last 18 months, what I've done for the residents. So almost to insulate myself. On a few occasions, I've raised my hand saying, if the town is taking a step forward, I would be in lockstep. And if that hadn't been done, I would be more than happy to go through. If I were to leave tomorrow because I win a scratch ticket, I'd never leave anybody hanging. The transition, I think I'd mentioned before, I have 2 assistants and I have a part-time person who can keep this place open for a month or 2 without any input from anyone. I think a lot of it is foundation. I think the bigger problem resides with the fact that Dudley does things on such a skeleton crew. Use the fire department, use the police department. There's a ladder, there's overlap, there's redundancy, there's a whole bunch of things. You see a financial team doing things formally that had been done informally previously and are going to be memorialized into a policy. So I appreciate that there was a deeper dive on this. I'm ready to retire from here, and I'd like to kind of keep that. I could go into a few other things as far as politicizing things and what have you, but again, it's very objective how this comes out. I think if you were to look to your neighbors, I was president of the state association and of the county association, so these people who were in the positions I knew outside of this building. I think if you were to look to Southbridge, look to Webster, look to Charlton in the last 5 or 10 years, maybe ask them what they thought worked well and what might have been an issue. I say that because I know there were some issues. So I think for continuity's sake, that's what this is against. So I could talk all night, but.
Well, I mean, and I would say, there's no one right answer.
unique set of circumstances, I think,
There
here.
are always unique ones, though. We could hire someone next week, and they could fail the week after, too. I mean, it's not likely, but.
It's the bigger picture approach. I think you were on track 2 weeks ago when the questions were being asked. What does the highway department get for complaints? Water department complaints, sewer complaints. I heard a selectman who shall remain nameless mumble tax collectors, the high vote getter for how many years? I'm the guy sending the pink bills. I'm the person who has to stand tall when, hey, what do you mean I can't get my permit? Because under 4057, you know, all of the entertainment licenses and the Class 2 licenses can be held up if you haven't paid all of your taxes. So
Would you feel more comfortable if you were appointed and that you didn't have to run?
I'm here because I'm still elected.
Yeah.
I'm the one that gets to stand tall and be apolitical on things. I send demand bills to everyone, unless, of course, they are in a bankruptcy. Beyond that, forget it. I don't ask a couple of selectmen if they've received a pink bill, a demand bill, a Dunning letter for those in the private sector. It's collections. Ask your town accountant how much money's been written off for anything. I like to stand by my record that if we do things, you see where my office is. You walked by me on the way in. I'm not hidden behind a counter. I'm here on the Monday nights. It's not lip service. I am here. And being part of the community. Some days it'd be easier to just, wave and look at the town in the rearview mirror and go off to the next lily pad, but I made the commitment, good or bad. I'd like to say that the job is not what it was in 2002. Ironically, it's 23 years, December 2nd, but not bad for something that might work out, right?
But your attitude towards the job, if this was voted on tomorrow,
Yeah.
and it was an appointed position, and you were appointed to the position, would your attitude change? Would your practices change?
I think the demands on me would change considerably.
Okay.
I get to go through and not have to worry about someone who may have a concern or a friend somewhere where if I'm withholding a permit, it's because I can point to an account that says this should have been paid by by November 1st in order for your Class 2 license to be issued, without fear of retribution. This is some foot stomping. You're not finding evidence anywhere that books are out of balance, or for some reason you can go through and add up the November bank statements, and they equal the cash total, of course, with the checks and everything, deposits in transit. So this isn't a holistic view of how the finances should be run. The Board of Selectmen did this in '04 when they orchestrated the recall against me. I follow the rules. I would like to say that if we disagree on something, things could move forward. You see me for the FAA meetings, you see me for the capital improvement meetings. This isn't something that I mail in. You see me at all of your meetings, you see me at the BOS meetings, you see me when the school districts have their meetings. If there's a chance to volunteer, I raise my hand and show up even though I'm not sitting up at front.
So I think one final question is, so my sense from what your comments are is that the public-facing nature of your job supports it being elected because you're more independent, as opposed to, let's say, the town accountant whose job is not that public-facing and would not face some of those
The
pressures.
The idea that there's water sewer bills that are due on the 12th. And you can't show up on New Year's Eve saying, what do you mean? My next door neighbor is whomever. I'm not paying the interest. Go through, try to get it. It's the same for everyone. I look as the town accountant as being an advocate. For the Board of Selectmen, you have an assistant town administrator here. And again, she's got a 5-member board that are elected. There's no qualifications for them except being a great member of the community. And they're the people that she is going to work for. And I would like to say on 99% of the things, our thoughts align. Everything should be defensible. Prior to Jonathan Ruda, Greg Balukonis was here. And he and I got along on 101 points because we took the time to work through whatever was the right decision given the circumstances and would be defensible when it was revisited. Anytime there's an issue with a payment in the collector's office, what am I doing? I am making sure that when the auditor looks at it, is this defensible? Yes, there was a check that sat in the back of the mailbox for a week. We netted the interest off because it's the right thing to do, as opposed to, if we had a bill that went to, it went to Richard on Richard Street in Richard, Massachusetts. Well, clearly he didn't get the bill. We make the correction. Had an issue with a vendor. Had an issue with the vendor and a notification. And anybody affected by a payment during a specific period of time, we listed everybody out, and nobody was charged interest in the event a platform was down or a notification didn't go out. And it's the right thing to do all of the time. I've never gone through and done anything to chum the water for votes. Again, I'm the tax collector. I get vilified on Sundays when they start reading scriptures. I get looped into such. But again, at the end of the day, I've had certain comments made where, if I send my daughter down and she puts the check or some cash in to the Dropbox, there's a great deal of people who have faith because they spoke to me, and that's sort of how the baton was handed off. Ask about Uncle Dudley. Ask about, I think Mr. Matthew had made reference to my predecessor. Again, you do things right the first time and don't have to worry about it. I think a great deal of what's being discussed tonight has a lot to do with, the implementation of the Vadar system. I mean, I started there and have been chained to it since we began, and there hasn't been a whisper difference, at least the operation in my office. I mean, we're still sorting out the issues that occurred from that first the May of 2020, May of 23, when we first did it, till now. If you set the links up wrong and there's a receivable that still hangs out there that hasn't been closed out, it'll never right itself. So these are the things that are happening. I could stomp my feet and say I'm elected. You guys deal with it. But, the idea that the accountant and I have gone through a whole bunch of things to make sure that whatever is out there as a residual is sort of identified, and it should clear itself either through an entry or final payment on something. And the goal is never have to touch anything a second time. We sat down today for an hour, 50 minutes, talking about the water sewer billing and how best to address it. Right now, the Town of Dudley has a water sewer department that sends bills out. The bills all go out for this building, the fire department, any place that receives the service. How do you go through and pay that? Do you go through the old school method where you charge the expense and a paper check goes across, or is there a better way to do it? So those are the conversations that are going on right now. I think a lot of those conversations are absent from part of this debate. I think it's important to go through and do things like that.
Rich, you do make some good points on the elected person instead of an appointed person. But let me ask you this, and you as the person, not you as a department head, but you as the person, would it not be more comforting to have a appointed position and not be held to that next election cycle, hoping it goes well on that particular day? If that makes sense?
How do I separate those things out? I mean, that's more than 2 decades. I've never planned out an election, never. Do a good job and everything will fall in its place. If for some reason you have a low voter turnout on, a terrible windstorm of a day and a flu outbreak and no one shows up and I end up losing the election, then it's in the cards. You would like to say, back to my earlier comment, that the 2 assistants who are in there, in addition to the rest of the financial team, have that placeholder in there so that as long as someone puts in a decent effort, goes through and bridges the gap. I have never worried about an election. There was opposition from 2021, and the person who stepped forward was working in the treasurer collector's office in Webster. So that's who's come forward.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I keep trying to add to my resume so that any of these unknowns that come up for the health insurance, I've spent some time on the executive committee for the insurance trust, and they're going through some rough times, but at the end of the day, it's not 8 in the gate. It's do what's right for the position, and everything else should fall into place. I guess it's a tacit call to make sure that right now there is an accountant and there is a fill-in. It's not really a fill-in, it's the retired accountant coming in. As much as I have 2 assistants, maybe the priority should be on that assistant to go through so that this team is solid. And it wouldn't be for someone to show up and just glance through a quick 8 hours, and shake as many hands as you can. The idea that you have more people in this area with the best software, with the public oversight. I mean, that's something that needs to be mentioned right now. The idea that you had a call for a personnel board and that didn't come to fruition sounds like you had a group of people outside of this building who wanted public oversight. Same thing with an audit committee. You had a group of people who had a concern, who would like a voice, and it didn't work that way. I think I'm the only person who's ever been on, who's an original person on the Capital Improvement Committee from its beginning. Tells you how long I've been here, but the continuity of things. You want to have, when I started on the FAA, before I got this job, there were 12 people. I think that'd be another goal. Go through and make sure that your public oversight has the engagement, as opposed to things ran well and they should be all set. So I welcome the public oversight.
Thank you. Anything else, anybody? Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, item E, future meeting frequency. So, sorry. You have comment, please.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
So my name is Kathy Carmignani. I have been in elected position I've been on the Recreation Committee, the Library Committee, and I now serve as a school committee member. I wanted to speak tonight about the objectivity, validity, and potential misuse of the resident survey. that has been circulated as part of the Govt Study. I want to be very clear and thorough because what is happening here could have long-term consequences for our town. For transparency, I want to acknowledge that my husband is the town treasurer collector for 23 years. I'm not bringing this up to discuss his performance. Voters have done that every election for more than 2 decades. I bring it up because I understand the implications when broad or flawed survey questions get interpreted as commentary on long-standing elected roles, even when those roles were never directly addressed. The committee was tasked with objectively evaluating Dudley's government structure, but the survey as designed and administered simply does not support an objective or reliable evaluation. First, I want to address the basic validity of the data. This is an open link on the internet with no residency verification and no controls to prevent duplicate submissions. Anyone from any town can take it. Today I opened an incognito browser and I was able to take it again if I wanted to. I could go on to another device and take it again. Nothing prevents multiple entries, coordinated responses, or manipulation. Data matters in government, but only when data is accurate, verifiable, and representative. When it isn't, it becomes not just unhelpful, but dangerous. Numbers are not the same as evidence, and if you cannot confirm who responded, whether they live in Dudley or how many times they responded, then you cannot claim the results reflect the feelings of the community. Using flawed, unverifiable data to guide major structural changes is misleading and irresponsible. Next, I want to talk about the flaws in the way the questions were designed. Several of the questions are vague, double-barreled, or combine multiple concepts into one answer. For example, asking whether elections place qualified individuals in key positions, provide performance oversight, and correct poor performance is actually 3 separate questions, forced into a single yes or no. And it also insinuates that these people are having poor performance. If someone answers no, you have no idea what part they disagree with: the election process, the oversight process, voter information, or something else entirely. When questions are ambiguous, overly broad, or poorly constructed, the results cannot be interpreted accurately. This is not how meaningful data should be collected, and it absolutely should not be the form or basis of decisions that could alter the structure of elected offices in the town. I also, another issue is going to be accessibility and equity. The survey is online only. That automatically excludes residents without internet access, seniors who rely on paper communication, people who are not comfortable using technology, and others who are disproportionately left out. These are often the same residents who show up at town meetings and consistently participate in local government. A study about representation cannot start by excluding the voices of the people that participate the most. And finally, I just want to highlight the lack of information provided within the survey itself, especially on a topic significant as the town charter. The survey asked residents whether they support adopting a charter, but provide no explanation, no definitions, and no links to any resources for them. Most residents do not know what a charter is or how it differs from our current structure. To ask people to express an opinion with no educational materials is not objective. It ensures confusion, and confusion leads to inconsistent, unreliable data. If the committee generally wants informed community input, the survey must provide information. It must educate before it evaluates. Thank you.
Yes, Paul?
Just a moment. Thank you for coming in and stepping forward. If you have concerns, we hope that anyone else does the same thing. The intent of the survey certainly is not to be misleading. If you took it in that aspect, we apologize, but that is certainly not the intent. The intent was to gather some baseline information on certain aspects of what we are reviewing, so we can then determine whether we should continue with our review on that particular aspect or dead end If the taxpayers say that they don't want to move any forward with this one particular aspect of what we're tasked with, then we'll just end it. But if they stay within this simple format, that yes, there was a question, maybe we should move forward, then we would do additional research and then continue with our thinking on this and talk to the taxpayers through additional formats. And the way our questioning is put out over the internet is actually a commonplace item. Doing research, I've noticed others have done the same thing, and I agree, it's not completely verifiable. It may come from outside of our community, but it just gives you a broad standing of what the thinking is from people that are not seated here tonight. That's all it is.
Yeah, I would say in response to that when you go on the Dudley Town Forum and the survey gets talked about, people don't understand that the elected positions that you're talking about is actually the treasurer collector as one of them. So I think they're thinking that you're talking about the selectmen or the DPW or other elected positions. And I just don't want, this is my family's, it's my husband's job.
I understand.
And when someone goes to the town, if you go to the town meeting and all of a sudden you say, well, 70% of the people that responded on this survey believe that we should not have the position elected, I don't even know what position you talked about.
But that one question, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have it in front of me, but was it just a general statement which would then encompass the entire administration of the community, not just targeting one specific department?
It talked about whether you wanted the, I can't find it.
The question was not specific for that exact
I believe that's what it was.
I
It
also
was
didn't think we were only looking at the treasurer. I thought we were
no, it
looking
was
at
broad.
everyone.
It was a broad statement,
Yeah.
broad question to encompass all departments and throughout the community.
Okay, because that's just wasn't I don't know. And my trust right now in the process is minimal. So I just didn't know.
Yeah, we gathered, I think in our first meeting, everyone's job description. We're not just looking at the treasurer. It's going to be everyone that we're looking at.
And that question specifically left out the treasurer collector because we wanted an opinion based on, and my research today on the topic did not focus solely on the treasurer collector.
Right.
The trend of municipalities for all the applicable boards or positions.
Okay.
We could just as easily be talking about the town clerk.
Yes, I just want to make sure that if we are not talking about the treasurer collector, then it doesn't get brought up as the treasurer collector when it goes to a town meeting with that question. So,
Okay.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, future meeting frequency.
I know my next project will not be ready for our next meeting. Okay, so don't ask me to put that on.
I can do, what's it called? Operational efficiency. I can do that for next time.
I think someone said that Tuesdays was better, and I feel like it was Rich. Or was it, I forget his name. Someone said Tuesdays
Right.
was better for them.
Well, so we're gonna meet on December 22nd. We're all good on that.
And will we have preliminary results from our survey at that point in time?
The last time I looked, there was only one person, and it was Deb.
Okay.
So I'll have to look. I'll look tonight and make sure that I got enough data.
Yeah, even if it's just a, hey, we've received 50 responses, type of update, that would be good.
It would be
Yeah.
nice.
My computer restarted, and I had to reboot it, so I lost all my spots.
So we're gonna meet the 22nd of December. And then I guess the question is, what are we doing in January?
Have we, I know, Olivia, you had alluded to the fact that we talked about a date, but it doesn't sound like we landed on a firm date for attending a Board of Selectmen meeting? But the intention from the original documents was that we would provide an update in this time frame.
So that's either next Monday or the first meeting in January,
Why
which is,
don't we start talking about that next Monday?
next,
I'm sorry, 2 weeks, the 22nd.
so we would miss next week's selectmen's meeting, and we would.
So we would shoot for a January meeting.
I think,
January.
yes.
Discuss so a topic on the agenda would be attendance at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yes.
And a specific date.
Yes.
And what we want to cover
Yes.
and ideally have done by that date and time.
Mhm.
To address the future meeting frequencies, we're already locked in for the alternating Monday nights. I don't think anybody has a problem with that going forward.
No.
But if we did want to meet more often, perhaps we might need to look at, a Tuesday or a Wednesday, depending on people's schedules and availabilities in those off weeks. And included in that availability is Olivia's time. And, it may be that there may be some meetings where we may need to meet without you, depending on your schedule and availability.
Mhm.
That's a good point, Rich. What is the better of the days, excluding Monday, for room availability?
Let's see. So I do have a calendar here, Mr. Chairman, because we have meetings scheduled through the end of December, but we don't have any meetings scheduled for government study going forward, starting in January. And we are going to run into the holiday on Monday, January 19th. That would have been a tentative government study day. So if you're looking at Monday, January 5th, that's the only, if we're keeping with our every other Monday schedule, that's the
Yeah.
only solidified meeting right there. As for room availability on other days of the week, I have meetings, we have meetings here pretty much every day, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Thursdays are a little more open. It looks like we just have ZBA on Thursday, the 8th. And I think all of the upcoming meetings are usually scheduled in this room, so there might be a day where there's a board meeting in this room, but there's not a board meeting in 3:15, and you all could meet in 3:15.
Okay.
You're
So,
also, Mr. Chairman, welcome to meet the same day as selectmen, before selectmen's meetings. I would just be attending those selectmen's meetings instead.
right. So we would do 12/22, and then January 5th would be a normal meeting for us anyway. And then we lose the 19th for Martin Luther King Day. Do we want a meeting the week of the 12th, not on Monday? Or skip the week of the 12th and have our Monday, the 1/19 meeting just on another day of that week? Do we want to increase the frequency or make sure we maintain the bi-weekly frequency?
I suspect that and maybe it will depend on the feedback we get after attending the Board of Selectmen, but I do think to meet some of the timelines, even the extended timelines that were in those initial documents, we're going to need to increase the frequency of meetings. I think there's no getting around that, unfortunately.
Agreed.
I
When's the
agree.
Board of Selectmen meeting again?
Other than the 15th of December,
It would be January 12th and January 26th.
okay. 112 and 126.
And the 26th is probably budget kickoff meeting for Board of Selectmen.
Maybe not that early.
Okay,
I think
right.
end of January is when we start with
Okay, as long
departmental
as,
meetings.
we don't want to have too much.
I think things like FAA are gonna start to pick up maybe early March.
Okay.
Maybe we can discuss by our next meeting to
That's fine.
be at the selectmen meeting on the 12th.
Yeah, we can talk. That's
Yeah,
fine.
we can figure out availability and what we hope to accomplish with that,
Okay.
perhaps with Brian and Mr. LaFond in
Yep.
attendance at the next
Okay.
meeting.
So 12/22.
I agree, if we're going deeper, then it's crunch time for budgetary issues.
So that gets us back to the week of January 12th. What's the best day, what's a free day on the week of January 12th? Not a Monday.
Yep, Monday's out because we have two boards meeting at that time. Looks like library trustees are in here Tuesday the 13th, but you could certainly use the other room.
Okay.
And then Wednesday the 14th and Thursday the 15th are open for both rooms.
Okay.
Or
If we
Fridays,
go-
if you want to meet Fridays.
If we go to the meeting on the 12th, do we want to meet afterwards? As like a quick debrief?
I don't have a meeting room available. I have Recreation Commission in that room and I have Selectmen here.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Good idea, but.
Not a bad idea,
Two
but
birds, one stone.
we get into trouble.
Good idea.
All right, so could we do, I don't, does any, Tuesday, the 13th?
That week, I think I'm available any day.
Okay.
Not Fridays. I'm not
No,
any
no,
available
we
any
gotta
Friday,
stay away
just
from
to be
Friday,
clear.
yeah. So why don't we do Tuesday, 1:13? It'll be the day after the selectmen's meeting, so we can debrief then.
Mhm.
And then we've got 1:05, so then we would normally have a meeting on January 19th, which is Monday, Martin Luther King Day, so can we do Tuesday, the 20th?
I believe that's Board of Health, so again, you'll be in the other room, which
It's all right,
is fine.
yeah, all right. We'll go to Tuesday, 1:20. And then should we just go for one more meeting in the last week of January? And see where that gets us? If we have to clarify anything with the Board of Selectmen or get some direction, we would get that for the 12th, so we could certainly discuss that on the 13th. And then again on the 20th. Let's schedule a meeting for the week of the last week of January, just to be safe.
Okay.
That's the 26th on a Monday. Is that okay?
You could meet in there on Monday.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, then let's do Monday, the 26th. So, our schedule will be Monday, December 22nd, Monday, January 5th, Selectmen's meeting on the 12th, our meeting on the 13th, another meeting on Tuesday, the 20th, and then a Monday meeting on January 26th. 12:22, what is this room?
This is 321A.
321A, January 5th,
321A.
321A. Tuesday, the 13th.
I would have to double check. I'm not sure where library holds their meetings.
And then Tuesday, the 20th,
I believe that would be 315.
3:15. And then the 26th would be 3:15.
3:15.
Okay, oh, great. Is there any chance the selectmen won't want us on the 12th?
I doubt that. I think they'd appreciate an update, but
Okay.
as always, I'll check with the chairwoman and advise you all.
Perfect. And if not that, maybe then we'll try for the 26th. You let us know. Okay, all right. Okay, anything else? The last agenda item is
Adjournment.
adjournment. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.